Hi all. Today is the results of the referendum in my country, Ireland. For those of you living outside the country, our beloved government is going into an election year and decided, because they've made such a balls up of the economy and everything else over the last 15 years, have decided to have a referendum today. The questions are about family, how we view them, and how we care for the sick and handicapped in our community, basically. Uh, the questions are here. I don't know whether you can read all it, but stop at your and do so at your leisure by all means. But the questions put forward were ambiguous, to, to put it mildly. In the case of marriage, they recognise that any pairing would be considered the same treatment as marriage. Okay, so if you had two gays or people living together, etc. Now, I've no problem with that. I have absolutely no problem with that. The problem I have, you see, is what they call a relationship, an enduring relationship. They don't define it. The government, that is, do not define it in this referendum. So, what it's going to lead to, basically, is the courts. So, they're going to pass this, and when it comes into law, to define a relationship, you're going to have to go to court. Now, the people are wise to this because, given it's an election year, they they're wary of it. Given 15 years of the same government and the catastrophe that is the health service, housing, education, uh, mentally handicapped people, uh, people who need psychiatric help, etc., 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 all down the line, the whole gambit. Farmers, industry, energy. We have the highest prices of energy in Europe, yet we're supposed to produce over 40% of our own electricity by wind power. So you got to ask a lot of questions there, you know. But basically, the way I see it, they decided that they wanted a plus on the plate to put forward to the electorate, as they did with the marriage equality situation. Now, I have no problem with what they propose. I have a problem with the wording they propose because instead of guarantees, you're getting strive. I mean, they do very little at the moment to help the family. They're going to strive, but they want to strive to help the family. And striving does not guarantee a damn thing, as we all know. So, to me, it's kind of pull down the curtain and don't ask any questions. We'll just carry on as we are. And when you question what we're doing, we can simply turn to the Constitution and say, well, it's not in the Constitution. You voted for it. So, no, I voted no on both counts. Uh, and it would appear, given that there's about 2 hours, well, an hour, maybe two, to the result, it's looking by all accounts to be a very low turnout. And even worse than that, it's a rejection. No, no, across the board. So you have about a 50% turnout. I got approximate numbers here. Approximately 50% turnout. And we got more than 50%, I would say, voting no on both of them. Now, you would ask, why would you vote no? Well, people are voting no because we had a citizens' assembly, and the citizens' assembly made certain um, submissions to the government as to how they should word a referendum and what they should cover. The government, of course, completely ignored it, which led to the Women's Council not supporting it, not 100% supporting it. I mean, they support the basic idea, but not what the government is trying to push. As I said, it's an electoral year, so they're looking for something good to go to the people with and say, "Aren't we great? Look what we did." Doesn't work that way. But the swamping of the courts is the major problem, I think, with this, because what's the point in changing the constitution if you have to go to court to ratify the various aspects of this constitution? Because if you change the constitution, then it should cover what needs to be covered, but it doesn't. That being said, it looks like it's a no-no or a win for the no-nos. Um, I'm happy with that because, to be quite honest, we need a new government in this country. We don't need the shit that's been doing it for 50 and 20 years. Needless to say, they're what's considered conservative. They're banging on about the far right and they're banging on about the left, and they're saying that we're the best. We'll, uh, how is it? We will guard against excesses. We will save lots of money, which they are doing. I mean, we're one of the richest countries in the world, yet we have 4,000 plus kids in hotel accommodation. Now, these aren't my figures, they're the government's figures. So you can nearly double that when you count people living at, with grandparents and friends and various relations. There are more than 4,000 kids. Now, add the adults to that, you've got over 12,000 official government numbers living in hotels. We have immigrants coming in and being given being given a tent. The lucky ones being given a tent, so they're camping out in the streets. We don't have any room for buildings to house these people. So our own homeless are going without homes, and in some cases going without even tents or any sort of help from the government. We have people coming into the country, and I'm not criticizing the fact that people are coming into the country, but you have to wonder, if people are coming into the country, why are they getting off planes and being allowed to stay when we've no identification on them? As far as I'm aware, you need identification to get on a plane. So what's happening to all the identification? I've no problem with people seeking asylum in this country, but they should have the paperwork. Anybody who doesn't have paperwork should be sent right back, as far as I'm concerned, to wherever they came from, wherever the plane brought them from. Send them back unless they have identification, and these people don't. We're seeing a spate of antisocial behavior. We're seeing the growth in machetes. Now, people will say, well, they're not all black, they're not all brown. And that's very true. But the majority these days are. Uh, there's various assaults around the country attributed to immigrants. I, I have no doubt that Irish people assault people too, but we're letting people into this country, and the government will admit it. People are getting off the planes without identification and being allowed to stay in this country, and it's not right. We're supposed to live by the law. The government are supposed to enforce the law and the rules, but they don't. Send them back. If they don't have passport or identification, they shouldn't be allowed into this country. Anyway, that's a squirrel to the reason I'm making this stream today. The referendum has been decided by the people. let's see what the government do. I can imagine what they're going to do because I've seen only one minister, and he was junior, on the TV this morning. Uh, the rest of them have all gone missing. There's nobody around to comment on the fact that they've lost the referendum or their proposals to changes in the referendum. I'm sure they'll come back and say this and that and the other, but we all know why. The same thing happened a number of years ago when the EEC was in operation. For those of you who don't know, that would be the European Economic Community. Uh, they decided to put it to the people that they wanted to make a federal state out of Europe. Now, on the whole, that might seem a good thing, but when you think about it, it's not. Because you have what you have today, which is we elect a parliament, people to go to parliament in Europe, but somebody else elects the ministers who make the decisions. Because it's not the parliament who make the decisions, who are out front talking to the foreigners and or the foreign diplomats and all that. These are people who are put into place. Now, the major thing I have with the EU as it is today and the EEC as it was then was, and I'm going to get some stick for this, it was created by members of the Third Reich. Those, those brain boxes who handled the financial affairs of the Third Reich uh, suddenly became involved with the setting up of the European Union or the European Economic Community in the 50s. And the guy who set it up was a former minister, financial minister in the Third Reich. Of course, you don't shout about that. He's whatever links he had with that is long gone. He was just doing what he knew to do. Like he was a financial officer. It wasn't up to him who was in power and all this, uh, despite the fact that he was a Nazi Party member. But I digress. The European Union is a great idea, but it is not a great idea to turn it into a federated state like the United States. Uh, Too much control for too little people. I mean, we're supposed to be equal in Europe, but anybody who's watched Europe over the past 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, in fact, will have noticed that the decisions are not necessarily what the people want. Um, at the moment, they're leaning towards an armed European state. Now, that to me is red flags all over the place. It's like going back to 1920s, 30s in Germany. Which reminds me, just a little point. Uh, During the Syrian conflict, you remember the Syrian conflict? Mm, didn't change much, did it? Except, of course, it killed a lot of people and caused them an influx of migrants. But the ones who were most vocal in supporting taking migrants in were Germany, France, Italy at the time, and England, or Great Britain, as it likes to be called. What's great about it? Who knows? But there you go. That's another story for another day. But from the 27, I believe, states at the time, you had these three or four states running the show. It wasn't the Parliament who made these decisions. It wasn't Parliament who discussed. Well, Parliament did discuss it, but you didn't really hear about it. It was, you know, basically ignored. The headline grabbers took the headlines: Germany, France, England, and to a lesser extent, Italy and Greece. Because Italy and Greece soon found out what it meant. So I can only say that we're in for a bumpy road for a while, and the referendum today is another pothole that we're going to have to negotiate. Because I don't think they're going to drop it. I don't think they're going to tell us the truth. I do think that they're going to try and bring it back some other day, because it's too late to go for another referendum this year. At least I would say it's too late, but who knows? It'll be very interesting. But we come into the world is going through a turbulent time at the moment, and we're joining that turbulence. And a lot of it is in our own making. And the only people to blame are the people in power. Because let's face it, the people in power are more inclined to look after business, farmers, and of course, don't forget their own parties. The people who are supposed to work for us are more inclined to work for their party and support their own party and look after their own party and promote their own party than they are looking after the people who voted them in. Anyway, that's me. That's me done for a rant. Thanks for joining me. I hope to make a few more before I part this mortal coil. Slán. And may your God go with you if you have one. And if you don't, I'm on your side. Because if I had my way, I'd kick all religions out and give them nothing. If they want to pray to their God, let them pray to their God. Why should I support them praying to their God? Their God is nothing to me. Any God is nothing to me. I don't care if he's Jesus, Muhammad, Jehovah. I do not give a fiddler's fuck about you or your religion. If you're good and honest and work hard to live your life, then I've no problem with you. But don't start inflicting your ideas on me. I don't care about them. I'm just ranting. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm just telling it as I see it. And I see a lot of turbulence ahead. And I see the government trying their damnedest to work in the old ways, but they have to change their ways. They do, in particular, the way they do things. Anyway, Slán Wally. I'm a bit topsy turvy in this video, but I'm nervous and I'm tired, to be honest with you. So we'll catch you again, and hopefully in a better state. Bye.